think that goal needs to encompass all of that and not just racial diversity. So that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. All right, that concludes citizens' comments for tonight. Next item is the superintendent report. Dr. Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Mannheim. I appreciate having the opportunity right now to update the board on some things that are going on across the district. As I think you are aware, we are planning to open school next Wednesday, August 19th to students, and we are welcoming back staff members beginning this Wednesday, the 12th. And we look forward to having our staff back together. Many of our educators, teacher teams, administrators have been working through the entire summer to try to plan for the return to school. We've had our District 303 task force committees that have been meeting every week to address many of the operational issues, transportation, food service, building health and safety, instructional programs, as they put together our reopening plan. I would like to speak right now just a little bit about the information that was shared today with the community about our reopening plan. And to provide a context for that, I just want to re-highlight for people and just emphasize again that as we think about reopening our schools, there are two central priorities. The first one being the health and safety of our students and staff members. That is the most important consideration as we think about reopening schools. The second priority is actually the integrity of our instructional programs and ensuring that the instructional opportunities that we provide to students meets the standards and expectations that we have as a community, as well as the commitments that our staff have made to provide excellence in the classroom. Both of those are paramount as we think about reopening schools, and they are central to our decision-making process. That being said, as you can imagine, because I think you all have experienced the media and information that's out there publicly and how guidance is changing, different opinions are presented. And as we look to the organizations that provide school districts guidance about reopening, the Illinois Department of Public Health, the Illinois State Board of Education, the King County Health Department, and the King County Regional Office of Education, they continue to receive changing guidance on a daily basis. Because of that, as a district, we have made a decision to use our phased-in reopening plan. And the reason for that is as we thought about bringing all 10,000 of our students and staff members back together in our buildings next Wednesday, simultaneously just reopening the doors and having everyone come back, we wanted to be sure that the health and safety protocols and procedures that we have put in place and been planning for are able to be implemented successfully. I mentioned today in my email that we have watched schools and school districts across the country reopen and within a few days have to close because they're not able to successfully implement the safety procedures and protocols. As a district, we do not want to make the same mistakes. We want to make sure, because our staff and student safety is so important, that we are able to provide the training and support that students need to be in our buildings safely. And that is the reason why we presented the rollout plan that we did today with bringing students back in smaller groups. We are beginning with our kindergarten through second grade students and our sixth graders at the middle school. The reason for that is our kindergarten through second grade students are the ones that are least equipped to interact in a remote learning environment. They're not familiar with the tools and the resources that we have available as a district, and it's important that we have an opportunity for them to connect with our staff members and our teachers to understand how those resources might be used to support their learning in the future. So kindergarten through second grade will be the first group of students coming back. The next group, of course, is then third through fifth, which will start the following week. They have had some experience with remote learning, and they know how to use some of those tools, although what we are offering this year, because of the work that our staff have done over the summer, as well as the commitment that you as a board have made to acquiring additional resources and materials for staff members to use to support remote learning, is a much more robust experience. And we're really very proud of what we're able to offer in that environment, although it's no substitute for in-person learning. We do believe that what we've been able to put together for students within a remote setting is much better than what we were able to do in the spring. And I think we should be proud of the things that we put in place there. But third through fifth grade, then we'll start the following week. When we think about middle school, we're going to bring them in their already divided groups by grade level. Sixth grade the first 2 days, seventh grade the next 2 days, and then eighth grade the following 2 days. That was outlined in the plan as well. So over the first 6 days of school, all of those students will have the opportunity to come to the building, walk their schedule, meet their teachers, understand the protocols and procedures that we have in place. And will also give us as a district the opportunity to adjust our plans or respond to anything that needs to be done differently. We think that this is very important. At the high school level, our high school students are going to start the year remotely. And this was important because we got to a point where our schedule could not accommodate both the blended hybrid and the remote instruction at the level that we wanted it to. So because of that, we are starting at the high school remotely. Hopefully after Labor Day, we will be able to bring back smaller groups of students. I've asked Dr. Herman to come and talk a little bit about the high school schedule.
Thank you. And it's very nice to be able to speak with all of you in person for the first time tonight. My name is Denise Herman, and I've been working with many people to respond to some of the challenges we faced last week as we were trying to develop the high school schedule. Many of you know that the older the students get, the more specialized the teacher requirements are for their credentialing, as well as the diversity of the student course request goes. And our goal was to be able to build very meaningful schedules for students in remote and for students who selected in person. However, as hard as we tried, we weren't able to do that very well because the percentage of students who chose remote was the smallest at the high school level. And we were forced to start to have some teachers who were teaching both remote and in person. And then that was also making it very difficult for us to have schedules that would work for the teachers. So one of the things that we did was took a step back and said, what can we do that is really going to be the most comprehensive, full schedule for all of our students so we don't feel like any of them are having to sacrifice quality instruction or sacrifice the courses that they selected back in the spring. So we are going to go back and implement the schedule that was built for all students back in May. We will have our students who selected full remote. They will participate in the in-person classes. And should we get to a health point where we're able to bring most of the students back who wanted in person, we will again then make sure that those are still the same students who want to return back and see if there's any students who from remote is doing even better than they thought. So we do imagine in September sometime surveying families again at the secondary level before we make any major adjustments to the schedule going forward. What we've seen from other schools similar to us is that families who made a decision in June based on early information, they've seen quite a bit of families change their mind based on the improvements that are made to the remote learning. We feel very strongly that the work we've done and the teachers have done over the summer is going to play out in some very high quality instruction, both synchronously and asynchronously. So we imagine that parents seeing that really high quality teaching and learning is happening, some of them might change their mind and want to continue on with remote. So I can answer any questions that you might have about the high school schedule.
I do have a quick question. Dr. Herman, this is Carolyn Weibel.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Great. So, my question is, at the high school level, are we concerned about the credentials for some of our specialized classes due to our staffing changes or staffing concerns there? And how are we going to be coordinating the needs of those credentials?
So if you're speaking of students who would be in co-taught classes, we will continue to offer our co-taught classes, so they will be instructed both by a certificated teacher in the content area and a special education person. If it's students who are enrolled in any of the specialized programs, those students are going to be coming every day, and so they already had a program and a schedule that was with a teacher who has the skill set to serve those students. Any other students or any other teachers will be the same teachers who were assigned back in May. So we feel pretty confident that all of the teachers who are assigned to teach courses this spring, general ed or special ed, will have the proper credential.
Okay, so I guess in regards to the potential rollout, the email is unclear as to what is getting rolled out first. And so I just was wondering, is that a work in progress? And as you work on that, how is the communication going to come out to families?
Right, so the thing we'll focus on for the first few weeks at the high school level is that high quality remote teaching and learning. And as that will take up most of August in terms of making sure that teachers have access to all the technology we purchased, they're going through a lot of the training these next 5 days, making sure that students understand how to use all of the tools. So we will start instruction on August 19th remotely. As teachers get more comfortable, we will then be asking for feedback from teachers on what things they might need to do in person. So if there is a series of lessons that maybe science need to do for some capstone project, or if there is some other kind of experience that it would be very difficult to recreate in the online setting, we would be asking for input there. We also have the opportunity after a few weeks of instruction to ask for input from students or parents about what kinds of things might they appreciate having the opportunity to learn face-to-face. So in small groups, and we see that being primarily what we do in September. And then once we know both the health situation in terms of the COVID virus and the ability to work out all of the making sure that large number of students on our campus at the same time, at second quarter, we would be doing an assessment to see if we're ready to go back to in-person or if we need to stay in remote.
Okay, and I have a question, and it might spill over to Mr. Moore, Dr. Herman, but I don't know what the percentage of teachers in regards to the staffing issue that we have at the high schools in particular, that we would be looking for kind of a re-entry participation from remote learning to in-person learning. Is there a certain threshold we're looking to get to?
That's a really good question. We're hoping that we would have enough students come back that would be approximately in other schools also where our size are shooting between 20 and 25%. Once you get that threshold, you had enough students to fill most electives. We had between 13 and 14% at the secondary level. So rather than trying to, again, continue to go down both paths and maybe not have either of them as robust as we would like, we decided to put the students and the teachers back in the same larger pool. So all of this all students will be assigned to certificated teachers. Once we're ready to have some students come back in and some students stay remote, we will again do another assessment to see what's the percentage now. And depending on the data we get in September, if we need to recreate the schedule and go down the path of 2 schedules, we'll do that then. If what we're doing right now works with the one schedule and students who are remoting in, we will continue with that. We're really working hard to try and make database decisions.
Right, and I know it's very complicated at the high school level in particular. Is there a schedule of communication? Because for high school, obviously, parents are gonna, wanna be informed continually. That, would it be something that, as we get near that, September date, or intermittently we'll be communicating with parents and families, or do you have any idea how you're gonna roll that out yet?
We have actually been focusing on getting the initial plan out. I think that right now we're looking at coming back from Labor Day as one time to probably assess parents at the secondary level, how did those first 2 weeks go? As well as getting any health information from the health department on how student cases are. I know at many other schools who've had kids come back or who have started to engage in athletics or other things like that have seen a little bit of an increase. So we're going to be monitoring both things, teacher feedback, student and parent feedback, as well as any health data that we have for our students and staff.
Okay, so there's a lot of variables. You're looking at, the health and safety data from our various sources that Dr. Pearson named. You're looking at threshold information, for students and staff in relation to remote, and in person. And it sounds like there's just a lot of moving parts for that, high school. And it's just a little bit more complicated than middle school and elementary versus a safety issue. I think that was some of the public discussion. I just want to clarify as to why high school in particular is much more challenging, than our other primary.
Absolutely. Our goal was to have all students return to in-person learning. It is much more complicated at the high school. So our goal is to, as soon as it's safe and as soon as we have staffing at adequate levels, in terms of different content areas and things like that, our goal is to have students come in person as soon as we can make that safe and ready to roll in terms of all the hallways and all of the things. The largest number of students, if we were to go back to an AP schedule, that's still between 800 and 1,000 students on each campus. And so we want to make sure that we are very prepared and that we learn from the elementary and middle schools, which are much smaller campuses.
Right, right. And not only is it, middle school has a large campus as well, but they're more finite in their study.
Yes.
Study topics, so in their curriculum. So I think it is very challenging. I just wanted to highlight that. So I hope the board doesn't mind. I just want to thank you for talking about the priorities. I don't want to speak to the board, but I know I've had conversation with Dr. Pearson, and my personal priority, and I think it's reflected by some people on the board as well, is that the goal, as you mentioned, is to get our students safely in front of our teachers as much as we can, as soon as we can. So they have that opportunity to build that relationship and start that intellectual connection while learning the curriculum. So I just want to reflect that as well and let you know that the campaign is strong. So thank you for saying that. I yield back to the floor in person. To the members of the board in person, thank you very much.
The only question I had was when we do go back, I know we had talked before, at semester, there's potential for us all going back to in-person. And who knows if that's gonna happen. But if it does, are we gonna be able to readjust for those people who were learning remotely? And will they be able to then be folded into in-person? Because I think some people are waiting for that semester, should that occur, to make that decision.
We will be prepared at semester to make that decision of possibly bringing back, just how we asked the families to make a commitment. We are making a commitment to them that should things change in January, we will be ready to bring all families back, should the conditions change, absolutely.
That was
So I also just wanted to have a chance just to address some of the special programs, because I know that that's a question that's been out there. So activities and athletics will continue at the middle school and high school as they have been already approved and will be subject to administrative approval at the high school for athletics, of course, IHSA, the guidance from the IHSA. And then if your student is involved in a special program, like one of our RISE programs or OASIS, you'll be getting information from the Student Services Department, but those programs are going to start in person on the 19th. Those are smaller groups of students, and we are putting a plan in place to bring them back as well. So I wanted to have a chance to mention that. I also wanted to just have an opportunity to thank publicly Juanita Gravinsky. She is our health services coordinator, and she has been working, as you can imagine, tireless hours to try to help our school district be prepared for a safe return to school. She's seen as a leader across our community and across the state, and she really has been a strong advocate for our students and staff in our district, and I just wanted to have a chance to thank her as well. Thank you, Mr. Manheim. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Pearson. All right, that concludes superintendent's report. So our next item is our committee reports. Mr. McNally, can you lead off with LMP?
It's going to be relatively short because our meeting was really only one major topic. We did, of course, have our superintendent update on COVID-19, but 2 days later, all that information usually is obsolete, right? So we had a discussion, and it's on agenda tonight for the board goals, and I'll just kind of briefly go through. Ms. Parker kind of led the discussion because she was the one that was actually writing the goals from the board's inputs. So the items discussed were target dates and baseline data, having data by the September LMT committee meeting to set baseline data regarding instructional gaps, belonging, and connectedness, engagement targets versus attendance targets, equity audit and response, fund balance parameters in the COVID budget, facility utilization, quality staff, climate and culture, professional learning, and communication strategies. And as I said, we're going to be looking at that this evening. Our next meeting is going to be next Monday at 5:30, and that is in person, and we are going to be at the Admin Center or here. Okay, here, I thought it was here, but so we will be here at Thompson Middle School next Monday. And right now, the two items that we have for potential discussion are the early childhood plan and the overview of the return to learn and the data percentage and selected for each model. And we will be discussing tomorrow some of the agenda items as well. Mark, is there anything to add here? Okay, that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. McNally. For old time's sake, I'm actually going to do business services tonight with Mr. Third vote. So as always, we talked about the Mid-Valley financial report as well as D303, as well as a COVID-19 financial impact summary for Dr. Chapman. Those are all for information. Our next four items are actually kind of grouped together. They're all for action tonight, which is reviewing the final draft for D303's 2021 budget, as well as placing it on display in public hearing, which will be taken action on next tonight. And then the next item is the Mid-Valley Special Education Cooperative Budget for 2021 as the final draft, and then placing that on public display and hearing tonight as well. The next item, we heard from Old Architects about their current update on facility master plan, and that's for information. The next item was the Belgrade Playground, and we deferred that to the summer of 2021. And then item J, which will be on for action tonight, is the St. Charles Park District rent relief request for the Haynes building space. And then we have the G Suite Enterprise annual renewal, which is on for consent tonight. And then we discussed the purchase of two items, but we don't take action on them yet, which is the classroom audio amplification system, as well as the room dividers. And Dr. Chapman, what's the next one?
It's the 24th.
So August 24th, and that will also be held here at Thompson. Old habits, right? Just remember. All right, so that concludes the business service minutes. So then I will, Mr. Parker, are you going to do CAC? or Mrs. McKay?
Mrs. McCabe, do you want me to do CAC?
Please.
Okay, so we met on January 29th, at 6 o'clock. We had a pretty good turnout. And Dr. Pearson started out with thanking the CAC members who have served on the Reopening Schools Task Forces, and then went into, and I find it slightly humorous given that we just talked about a new plan, but went into talking about reopening school guidance from ISB and from the CDC change on a daily basis, and that the administration was responding to those changes. And so Dr. Pearson went into a presentation about the strategic commitments, and the CAC members worked in breakout groups on reflection questions. The group's responses were provided to Mrs. Smith, and she is compiling them, and she'll be sharing them at the next CAC executive team meeting, and that team will then discuss next steps. So some future agenda items are facilities master plan, and talking about responsible stewardship, so the financial aspect. And then the meeting adjourned at 7:36. And that was all.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Parker. Mr. Ryan, do you have anything about policy?
No, we are meeting, next Monday, the 17th, for LNG.
Excellent. And that will be here as well. All right, excellent, thank you. All right, that concludes our committee reports. That takes us to our 4 action items. Do I have a motion to approve the revised school calendar for 2020-2021?
So moved.
Mr. McCoy?
Second.
Mrs. Parker, thank you. Is there any discussion pertaining to the school calendar? All right. Mr. Hester, will you
Sorry.
go?
Can Mr. Moore just highlight the changes quickly? Possibly.
Yes, of course.
All right,
As we announced,
briefly.
yes, ma'am. As we announced a week ago, we moved the first day of student attendance to August 19th. To accommodate that, we have taken the Institute Day that was on January 19th and moved it to August 12th. So January 19th previously was a day for no students, now it is a student day. And then we added 3 days at the end of the school year, so the last day of school, pending snow days, is May 28th. So first day for students, whether it's remote or in person, depending on grade level, is August 19th. January 19th is a school day, and last day of school is May 28th.
Thank you.
I do have a question. As I was listening to that again, I just thought about, so if August 19th is a start date for some students, but not all students, are we, I obviously didn't count the days, but are we going to meet our day requirement with some of our students who aren't starting until the end of August?
All students are starting in one mode or another on August 19th, so the ones who are remote, it counts as school for them.
And then any shorter attendance days or days at the beginning of the year as well? Those will be counted as full days as well.
Yes, for elementary, we're using the shortened about 4-hour days for the 19, 20, 21, and then they will have a assignment of some kind for home. So yes, they do count as full days. Under the state's guidance, you don't have to be present to count the day.
Okay, no more discussion then, Mr. Hester?
Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes,
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
yes,
Mrs. Barker? Yes. Mr. McCabe?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, item B, do I have a motion to approve the board goals?
So moved.
Mr. McCoy?
Second.
Mrs. Barker, thank you. Any discussion pertaining to the board goals?
Yes, I would like to please, because I may do so. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I did have some concerns about the innovative learning targets. I have no problem with setting targets and rigorous ones so that we are addressing the needs of our students. I just have a problem that we set targets and deadlines when we don't have the assessment data in front of us. I had some language that I would like to put in front of the board. I think you each got a copy of that to talk about the flexibility of the situation and based on our conversation at L&T, Dr. Pearson said that we would be able to get all the assessment data by the October board meeting, if not before and into the L&T meeting in September. I think it's critical that we do know what our kids need and that we set expectations to meet those needs. I'm just not sure that setting the goal for March, January, and how many kids will hit what targets when we don't know what those targets should be. So I would like to propose some language change, if that's possible.
Any board members have any comments on this mechanism?
Well, I mean, to be honest, we all agreed to be flexible and to revisit frequently those goals at L&T, and then we would determine if we were on target to meet, exceed, or need to revisit or rework. So I think we all agreed when we were together, that only 4 of us here right now, and 2 at home, but we all agreed when we were on that meeting to be flexible. I'm not sure if we want to put an asterisk somewhere and say, hey, we're going to have to be flexible with this particular set of goals or goal. But I do think that at this point, we have to have an academic goal. It could be slightly absurd if we didn't, but and that's how SMART goals are written. So, and I understand where we're going to get the data, hopefully take a look at it. And if we need to rework or readjust that particular goal based upon the information that we receive in late September or October, depending on when that data comes, I think we all felt that we will do that. Because, right, we were supposed to set goals back in June, and now we're here at August, and we still haven't said, hey, these are the goals. So I think at some point we just need to say, okay, these are goals for right now, and here's where the path is, and then if we get information that tells us, oh, that's not even in the realm, then we all have to be willing and agreeable to revisit and take a look at that and adjust. And I think also Dr. Pearson has had significant input into these goals, and has partly worded some of these goals as well. And from what I recall, and this isn't an exact quote, but he felt like these were good goals that we should be working on. So I can let him speak for himself, certainly. But I guess that's where I'm at. Let's just say, okay, here we're ready, and we're all going to be flexible, and we are going to revisit and be willing to rework these goals.
And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we rework and postpone. The language that I would propose is that we set academic targets based on the assessment information we get.
I guess one of the concerns that I have is, Ms. Barker, you mentioned, we're going to be revisiting these goals. If we need to revisit goals, and why even set that now? Should this be something we just wait to do until October when we have the data we're looking for? To me, if we set a goal now, that should be the goal that we're striving for to be successful in reaching that goal. So, but I see both sides of this. I want to have goals. I want to set goals right now, but creating goals with data that we don't have, I don't think is really something that we can do.
Hop back in here. One of the things we did discuss during the meeting was, we said that, hard dates on these goals were really difficult because we don't even have hard dates for all of the data. We have sort of hard dates for some of it, but, so we did say that, essentially that holding anyone accountable to something when all the pieces aren't really there is a difficult thing to do. So I think that, frankly, if we're going to reword anything, I don't know that we should vote on the goals tonight. If we're going to reword things, if we agree to, as Ms. Barker said, put an asterisk on it, essentially saying, these dates are not hard dates, that's a different thing. I imagine we can make that change tonight. But if we're going to,
I would like to jump in and just say that when we set goals last year, they were malleable throughout the course of the year. I just want to jog everyone's memory. So when we did a mid-year, if there was a goal that was not a realistic or achievable goal, they were fluid and malleable. That's why we don't put them into Dr. Pearson's contract. Instead, we set these sorts of goals. By voting on them, it's just a matter of formality. They're not set in stone. We can amend and change them throughout the course of the year to our desire. If we see them in our mid-year that it's not feasible, or we don't have something that is workable, we can make the amendment and vote on it at any meeting. When we have gone through the last 4 years of goal setting and goal processes, we specifically have talked about the lack of specifics and the problems and frustration that causes down the line. So I would hesitate to take out metrics and SMART goals when we spent so much time making SMART goals at the recommendation of ISB, by the way. Instead, I would just recommend to this group that as we go along, if we find a goal to be too unachievable, where it would be detrimental to a superintendent, any superintendent, it would be up to the board to then say, we made this unachievable and we have to amend it, and now we're going to vote on that amendment. And that's okay for the board to do. It's okay for any board to do and say, this is a process, a learning process, especially in a pandemic crisis year, when we're learning about what we're doing. So I would just caution the board to be overly cautious when we specifically year to year are trying to make strides to put SMART goals in place for the first time in this district for a very long time.
so to complete my thought on the matter, what I was going to get to the point that I don't think Mrs. McCabe is saying that we should have no metrics. I think she's saying that she would prefer to wait until those metrics can be made realistic. And I don't have a problem with that. Right now, it's a matter of, do we want to reword the goals? If so, I don't think we can vote on them tonight. If we don't want to reword the goals, then we can just do it with an asterisk and say, essentially, these are not hard targets. We could do that tonight with a little bit of with a little addendum. But I don't think anybody here is suggesting, I don't think Mrs. McCabe was suggesting that we don't have metrics. I think she was just looking for a point where we can actually have metrics that are realistic and measurable and really attainable.
Thank you, Mr. McNally, because that is exactly what it is. It's making sure we're focused on the right things. I like SMART goals for that purpose. I want rigorous. I want them to be the kind of goals that will meet our kids' needs, and that is all. If flexibility is going to be part of it, I would prefer personally to have that somewhere written down, because I think we should be held to the goals that we set, even if they are malleable. We should be accountable to our community and to our teachers as to what we're focused on. But if the board, I mean, we can call the question. I probably will vote no, because I really do believe strongly that assessment data is critical to setting goals. Everything we do is based on evidence, and I think we need to show that with our goals as well.
So do you want to add in that the part where I said we will be revisiting, well, we are going to be revisiting because we are going to have this information presented to us repeatedly through throughout the year, but also in the beginning of the year. You never just set it and leave it. But yes, you know, there, number one in particular, will need to have more information put into it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's, I don't want to say that things are not reachable at this point, because we don't know that, and I don't want to say make a problem that isn't a problem yet. Like, we're just kind of conjecturing that it could be a problem, and it may be perfectly reasonable the way it's written now. But when we get more information, then of course we may need to add more action, or we may need to adjust something. But as Mrs. Weibel said, that's always the situation. We always should be looking at the goals. We always should be revisiting and making sure that we are, you know, either meeting the target or exceeding it. Or we may need to readjust it.
So I'll my final comment on this is we're in a weird time. You know, we're not in normal times, and so I think setting goals with kind of hard targets is a difficult thing to do in a difficult time. And I don't have a problem with, as I say, voting on them tonight as goals, if we kind of do that caveat that Ms. Barker mentioned, that kind of the asterisk of, these are goals that will be revisited due to the circumstances of the unusual learning circumstances of the time.
Yeah, and I think I tend to agree. I think this board, 4 to 7, we put a lot of time into these board goals, a lot of hours. Someone said that, you know, we were supposed to have these in June, and to Mr. McNally's point, it's a weird time to kind of push this down. So I'm hesitant to keep pushing it down, but I think we all kind of did agree. Ms. Parker said in the L&T meeting, Mr. McNally, that we're all flexible. We understand the challenging times and the circumstances that we're in, and if they are, things change. They're continuing to change with us. So I'm comfortable voting on it tonight, and I think we all kind of agree with each other, and that we are going to revisit things as new data comes, or more information provided to us by the district. So with all that being said, I'm comfortable, you know, moving forward tonight, knowing that these are things that we're going to continue to work on, and that's the job of our board, is to continue to look at things and evaluate them and make changes as necessary to further the district.
So I think all 7 of us agree on the content of these goals. We all agree that we need to have measurable goals. I think disagreement is is coming about with, setting having the data and what those metrics need to be at this point. So I agree. I think it sounds like many of you are, okay with these if there is that flexibility. So would I need to make a motion that, I guess could I make a motion to, add some sort of clause in the code that would include flexibility? Would we need to have that?
Yeah, so you either need to move to refer it back to committee if you don't want to talk about it tonight, or you have to amend the original motion, which you made the original motion, is that correct? So the first, you could amend your original motion and have your original motion amendment seconded. Or somebody else can move to amend, and then you have to vote on the amendment and then vote on the original.
The amendment being, we're going to include the asterisk clause,
Yes.
which I don't know the wording of it yet. So Ms. Barker, I hope you have some wording going on right now.
Did you all receive what I sent out? There's a paragraph there that could be just tweaked.
I'm pulling it. Yeah, I'm pulling it up. I believe I did.
Yes, we did.
I'm going to read it if you don't mind.
Please.
Due to the complex and unpredictable COVID-19 events that are impacting our school district, this board recognizes that specific goals and timelines must be flexible and realistic. If you just, and then I go, therefore, the following goals are not so specific. But if you just put that first line in there, to say that the board, and then the board will continuously examine and analyze the data with administration or something to that point. In fact, I think we're going to get a lot of updates. I would just like to have something realistic, so that if somebody reads them, they know that we are going to go back to them.
So we probably need specific wording before I make a motion, am I correct?
I'm pulling it out.
And will I have to read it wording or just say the wording of this?
Highlighted and then to the arrow. Can you read it?
Can somebody read it, please?
Please, just recognize that I read it. I highlighted the top part and then I added a little part to it.
So
Thank you.
You just read it to make sure before I stumble over it publicly. Okay, I would like to amend my motion to approve the board goals with the following addendum. Due to the complex and unpredictable COVID-19 events that are impacting our school district, this board recognizes that specific goals and timelines must be flexible and realistic, and will continue to revisit and revise goals as needed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Parker, thank you. All right, do we need to have any more discussion, or does everyone feel pretty good about where we are?
Thank you. I appreciate taking the time to do that. Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
I think we've had enough discussion and enough awkward seconds.
Excellent.
Let's vote.
All right, Mr. Escher, will you please take a roll?
Vote on the amendment first.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment first. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker? Yes. Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes. So the amendment to the board goals passes, so now we will take vote on the board goals with the amendment.
Do we need a motion or?
No.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes. Okay, motion passes for the board goals. So that takes us to item C, which is placement of the fiscal year 2020-2021 Community Unit School District 303 budget on public display and schedule the public hearing. Chairman? Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion.
Go ahead. So moved.
Mr. McNabb.
Second.
Mr. Ryan, thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just want to mention, this is just a motion to put it on display.
Oh, that's
We'll
right.
actually be voting on the budget at
That's
next
right.
month's meeting. We have a 30-day display period that we put the budget on display prior to the vote. Next month.
All right, thank you. All right, is everyone good with that process? All right, Ms. Rashford?
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes. Motion passes. Item D, do I have a motion to approve the placement of the fiscal year 2020-2021 Mid-Valley Special Ed Cooperative Budget on public display and schedule the public hearing? So moved. Mr. Bryant?
Second.
Mr. McNally? Any other questions or comments? Ms. Rashford?
Mrs. Barker?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mr. Redmond?
Yes. Motion passes. Item E, St. Charles Park District rent relief request for the Haynes building space. Do I have a motion to approve?
Can someone just give a quick recap of this
After we do that. So moved. Mr. Moran and Mr. Mihai, thank you. All right, now we can have a discussion.
So basically what this is we agreed to kind of meet the park district in the middle for some of the lost revenue that they may have experienced related to the opening of the Haynes building. And clearly about the time that they were ready to open, I don't know if you remember, was one of our last public events before our situation in March was the reopening of the Haynes building, and they have experienced some loss of revenue related to opening that building. We, of course, would have had incurred some expenses in operating the building anyway, whether they were a tenant or not. And so they asked for us to split the difference a little bit and what some of those losses were. Dr. Chapman can speak to the exact amounts, but we agreed based on what's in the resolution to reduce the rent for them for that first period of time. They're a really good partner with us, and so that's what we discussed with business services and put that back to them. And that's what they agreed to. You want to talk to Dave? I'm out there. Thank you.
All right, good evening. As Dr. Pearson said, we've been in this agreement now actually for about 6 months. The Park District actually did make full payment the first 3 months of the agreement. And then with COVID-19, they lost roughly $28,000 in revenue over that 3-month period. So the request was, what can we do? Is there some way that we can provide some rent relief? And in discussions with them, we came up with kind of a middle ground. So our costs for that period from a utility and labor perspective were slightly lower, of course, because we didn't have occupancy in there, nor did we have the same obligations. So that was helpful by providing us relief to them of $1,937 per month, which totals $5,811. We'd be fairly close to breaking even on that. We have a slight reduction based off our actual expenses. So pretty close.
Thank you, Dr. Chairman. Any other questions? All right, Mrs. Pittsburgh?
Mr. Brand?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes, motion passed. Item F, do I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing emergency expenditure of funds for the purchase of personal protective equipment?
So moved.
Mr. Renata? Ms. Park? Thank you. Any questions or comments pertaining to this resolution?
Just really, this is something that we have to do. We're going to be asking people to be doing the jobs. We need to make sure that that job is safe. And we're asking students to be in the building. We need to make sure the students are safe. It's really our number one priority. So my understanding is that we are hopeful that some of this will come down from federal funds, both for dollars. So
Absolutely. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, Ms. Bradford?
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Brand?
Yes.
Mr. Rankin?
Yes, motion passes. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution regarding the D303 fall 2020 reopening plan and remote learning plan?
So moved.
And Mr. Wright, thank you. Any comments or questions? I think we all know that we can continue to adjust as we get more information, and this is more of us kind of affirming that that's our plan. Continue to be adjust and be flexible.
No, again, once again, we're in odd times and difficult times, so I think, I'm hoping that there's a lot of flexibility with regard to, with everyone, understanding that everyone's role, from student to teacher to administrator to parent, it's going to be difficult in these times, so I think, kind of hoping that we're, I guess the main question I have is everyone prepared? Does everyone have all the materials they need? Have we been able to distribute all the materials to students and to teachers and everything so that everybody's ready to go on day one? We have that, I guess.
Well, I can just say that everything that we've put in place is ready to go, and one of the things that the phase in reopening plan allows us to do is to continuously monitor and adjust based on, what's happening, as we slowly bring students and staff back to the building. So I'm appreciative of the board for helping us not only acquire the personal protective equipment, but also the instructional resources that over the last several months you have invested in for students and staff members related to supporting both technology infrastructure as well as software and online resources. I think that will help support the flexibility that we're gonna need in our instructional program.
Mr. President, if I may say something.
Mr. McNally just wanted to say something. Give me 1 second.
Okay, sure.
Yep, thank you.
Come back to me.
The only
I
other
can't
thing I
tell,
was gonna say
sorry.
is, there are several teachers on the board at this point as well, and I think, we can kind of speak to the idea that this is new for everybody, and there are no experts in this. So, I think sometimes people are looking to everyone to be an expert in something that no one's done before. This is new for everybody, so again, I just ask for flexibility and patience on the part of all parties involved, for all parties involved.
Thank you, Mr. McNally. Ms. Weibel, you had something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, the position that COVID has put education in. While I have dabbled in the medical industry as a professional person here for almost 50 years, we are now considered in education as essential workers. So whether we are essential workers as those not paid on the board, or teachers are essential workers, or our administrators are essential workers, or even our administrative assistants to help everyone out are essential workers. We are essential workers here to take care of and educate our kids with D303. That is really how we are. And so our job, the administration's job, the board's job, has been to make sure and put forth the health and safety of our staff and our kids. There's been a lot of grief out there in the public, and I certainly understand the anxiety that flows out there in regards to your personal life, your children, if you're a teacher or instructor, your own family. It is a very scary time, but understand that we are back to where we were in March, all in this together, trying to sort out what the best way is as a group of essential workers trying to take care of our kids as best we know how in a situation that is literally ever changing every hour. And so it's very difficult to do because weeks are very short, frustrations are very high. But I hope and pray that people can stop and have conversations with each other and listen to one another and not just assume or think bad things or start bad conversations. So it's a really good time for us to have a fresh start as our kids go on to their new journey of what new education looks like with people that we know care about them. So I just wanted to kind of jump in and talk about that and understand, help people understand that this really is an industry that's as important as what the medical industry has become in the sense of how we take care of people.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other quick thing, I kind of had made a note that one of the things that, as I said, nobody's an expert at this yet, and the thing that I'm hoping we have everyone doing, this isn't like a giant laboratory right now. This is something nobody's ever done, and so I'm hoping that we're collecting data as we go, and we're figuring out from the people who are sitting in front of the kids in the classroom or on the computer, figuring out the best way to do this, and working collaboratively with the teachers, because they're the ones who are kind of doing this, and they're the ones who are going to be able to tell you right away whether or not things work. So I hope we're allowing those teachers to get together as well and kind of discuss the best way to approach things.
All right, thank you. Ms. Barker?
I do, I appreciate both what Mrs. Weibel and Mr. McNally have said. I do want to recognize though that, this plan it is a good plan moving forward at this time, right now in this moment. But it is confusing for those who, number one, are in education, and for families that have, multiple kids. What can you do, or what can happen in the next week to help parents understand this a little bit more?
So we're planning some follow-up communication by level, so that if you're an elementary person, you're gonna get elementary specific information. If you're a middle school person, you're gonna get middle school information. Part of what makes it so confusing is that it covers the gamut of all of our programs and all of our grade levels and all of the different combinations. And if you only have a student at certain grade levels, it's gonna be a little bit more helpful to have some targeted communication from the buildings, and that's the next step of the communication.
That does bring up one thing that has become kind of a topic people have mentioned to me, though, that not everybody has students in only one grade level. And so that's where it becomes, I think, more difficult is, if you have somebody who's, if there are multiple schedules to juggle, and many times, if you have people who are teachers in the house as well, then you've got schedules to juggle for the teachers that may not coincide with any of the schedules that the students have. So childcare has become a huge issue. So I think we had talked earlier, and we're hoping that something might be able to happen with that. So, but again, there's an awful lot of confusion, as Ms. Parker mentioned. There's an awful lot of confusion, and if you have multiple students at multiple levels, it's a geometric progression for each student to have that much more confusion.
And unfortunately, the reality is that at each of the three levels, our buildings are different sizes. Because of the social distancing and capacity requirements, we have to respond differently at each level, which is part of the reason why the plans look so different. So we are sensitive to the fact that it's very confusing. We worked on the communication today, several different variations to try to make it more, to make it easier to understand. And we realize that it's just because there's so much there, and there's so many different combinations of possibilities. That's why we decided to go ahead and give everybody all the information and then follow up.
Okay. Ms.
Mr. Manhunt?
Yes, Ms. McCabe?
I want to commend all the work from all the folks who have worked all summer. We are being bombarded with people who are disappointed or angry or don't understand. But we are also hearing from families thanking us for still putting teachers in front of kids. I think our teachers are amazing, and I think they will do an amazing job, whether it's remote, whether it's blended, or whether it's face-to-face. I appreciate that we have a plan that provides for face-to-face learning, synchronous learning, as well as bringing small groups of kids in. It is a different approach than most districts. Most districts are giving people options and then going remote. But I like the idea that at least here at the beginning, our kids are going to get to meet their teachers, learn the platform. I think our high school will excel because we have outstanding teachers who are going to meet the content needs. So I appreciate all the work. It is confusing, and it will take people time to figure out, but I think that administration and teachers who have been working on this, and community people know that it is trying to make the best out of a very terrible situation. So thank you for all the work.
All right, thank you, Ms. McCabe. Ms. Rashford?
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Here.
Mrs. Parker? Yes. Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Manhunt?
Yes, motion passes. Okay, so item H, motion to approve the Zoom video conferencing with education.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. McNally and Mrs. Barker. Looks like Mr. Smith's going to join us to talk about it for a second.
I don't know if anyone has any questions, but the Zoom video conferencing has some features that are not currently available on our other video platforms. They are in their roadmap, but they're not gonna be added before school. So we recently discovered that. So we're missing things right now like breakout rooms and custom backgrounds, which teachers really want to use with their students, and so we'd like to add it.
And I just want to just remind people, if you remember back in the spring, you staff members were asking for Zoom and we, wanted to be able to provide it, but unfortunately there were some security concerns with their ability to protect student privacy and some of those issues, and I think that played out well in the media. I think people heard about that. And we were not able to allow Zoom to be used for students at that time, but now they have an education opportunity, our education enterprise that allows us to access it and maybe address those concerns and issues. And quite frankly, our teachers have asked and asked and asked and asked. And so this is really a gift for them to be able to have a platform that is more robust and allows some more flexibility for some of the learning opportunities we have.
That was the only question. I knew that was a concern we had before, and I assumed because we were bringing it forward that was addressed, but I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think this is gonna make a lot of teachers excited to have this tool as we move on in the school year. Start.
I had asked a question while we were kind of reviewing the agenda about the capability of the Chromebooks and Zoom, and if that's, that was looked at potentially being an issue or not, and it's not great.
And so I think there were some older model Chromebooks that don't work well with Zoom, but I think ours are newer enough now that we've not had any issue with them using it. So correct.
We had a very small amount out there that should have been retired, that were used quickly when we went into remote learning, but those will all be replaced earlier this year.
And I also just want to mention that Zoom fits in our Schoology platform, so our learning management system actually you can use Zoom as a video conference.
All right, Mrs. Bradford?
Ms. Weigel,
Yes.
Mrs. Becker? Yes. Mr. Grant?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, takes us to our item I. Do I have a motion to approve the Citrix environment expansion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bryant, Mr. McNally. Any discussion? Mr. Smith is here to answer any questions. Well,
So just so you know, Citrix is a platform that allows us to make our more complex software that requires a larger server available via our Chromebooks. So if you think about things like some of our art classes or video production classes that use highly sophisticated software, Project Lead the Way, some of our engineering classes. And in the past, we had to purchase more larger computers, bigger computers to run that software. And this now allows it to basically run in the cloud. So any of our students that are taking a class that needs more sophisticated software are able to access it virtually from any device, including Chromebooks.
everyone good? Mr. Bradford?
Mrs. Becker? Yes. Mr. Grant?
Yes.
Mrs. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mr. Minnick?
Yes, motion passes. All right, that takes us to our last item for action. So this is a follow-up from the spring. At our remote special board meeting on May 26th, the board held officer elections. At that meeting, we discussed reaffirming the election of board officers at our first in-person board meeting. Do I have a motion to reaffirm the election of board officers that occurred at the May 26th, 2020 board meeting?
So moved.
Mr. McNally.
Second.
Mr. Bryant. I don't know that we need more discussion, but after there's more discussion. Not hearing any, all right, Mrs. Bradford.
Mr. Grant?
Yes.
Ms. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Becker? Yes. Mr. Minnick?
Yes, motion passes. All right, that takes us to our consent agenda. Does anyone have anything that needs to be pulled? Not hearing any? All right, then do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mr. McNally,
Second.
Mrs. Barker, Mrs. Becker?
Mrs. McKee?
Yes.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker? Yes. Mr. Brink?
Yes.
Mr. Manning?
Yes, consent agenda passes. That takes us to our core information, which is our usual, our FOIA request, financial reports, and then, which is new, from Business Services, the COVID-19 financial impact summary, which we'll start to see monthly as well. We don't have any new business, so, and no items for discussion. So do we have any citizens' comments? Okay. All right, we have one citizen comment, so Mr. Barker, will you read our end of meeting citizen comment?
The school code provides for a public comment period at each board meeting, subject to reasonable constraints. Practice of this board is to limit the public comment to 3 minutes per speaker, to a total of 15 minutes at the end of the meeting. Speakers addressing the board are expected to maintain a reasonable level of civility. Also, personnel matters are sensitive and confidential. Comments regarding individuals should be respectful. Insults and defamatory remarks have no place in this setting. The board will terminate public comment if speakers cannot adhere to these guidelines. Please identify yourself at the beginning of your remarks.
Thank you, Mrs. Barker. So our speaker is Joe Bloomquist.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Joe Blomquist, SCEA President. I want to start my comments by quoting the great Dr. Fauci, and he says, "You don't need to either shut down completely or let it rip," as I say. There is a middle ground where you can prudently open. So I think the misperception amongst some is that either you're going to shut us down completely or we're going to do whatever we want. No, that was the reason for the public health guidelines of opening up our country. If you do it prudently, you don't have to shut down. I stand before you today because as an association, we are not pushing to go fully remote right now. And the reason why is because the actions that our administration has been taking has been at the core of what our biggest concerns are. Our biggest concerns center around the health and safety of our students, of our staff, of our students' families, and of our staff's families. I want to thank Dr. Pearson and the administrative team for all their hard work. If any district can do it, we can do it. Dr. Chapman and his team have worked with the associations to put us in a financial position that we can provide the resources that we need to be safe in our buildings. Ms. Geyer, Mr. Moore, Mrs. Herman have done a great job at every level talking about not only providing the best quality instruction, but problem solving around every facet that we have concerns. And make no bones about it, there's still a lot of questions that we have as teachers, that we have as staff. We're still concerned. We're willing to try it out. We're willing to see how the lunches happen. We're willing to see how the buses look. We're willing to work to make sure that we give the best quality instruction in person as possible for those who are willing to come to school. I'm here standing in front of you to appeal to everyone out in the community. If you are one that doesn't believe in the masks, in the social distancing, please meet us halfway. Please start getting your students used to wearing these masks for hours, because that's what it's going to mean to be safe. We don't want this spreading in our community. A lot of our teachers are scared. I know a lot of parents are very scared. What if it gets to my family? And I want us to all be very cognizant that that is out there. And we are all going to do everything in our power to keep everyone safe in our classrooms. And we ask that you keep everyone safe in your child's classroom. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that concludes citizens' comments. We do not have a closed session tonight, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So
Mr. McNally?
Second.
Mr. Bryan? Thank you. Ms. Becker, please.
Mr. McNally?
Yes.
Ms. Weigel?
Yes.
Mrs. Barker? Yes. Mr. Bryan?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we are adjourned at 8:25. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. See you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.